Hello and welcome to the start of a new era. I'm sure almost this time last year I was saying exactly the same thing as W Series took to the track for the very first time. Now though, we are all confined to here, to our homes, but that has led to another fresh start and the creation of the W Series Esports League. Now we have some incredible drivers, and over the next 10 weeks we'll be visiting some of the best racetracks in the world. And to help guide us through it all, two men who know what it's like to win a race and crash a car, sometimes on here, one very much in real life too. Our commentator for the W Series Esports League is Luke Crane, and alongside him is 13-time Formula One race winner David Coulthard. Luke, welcome to W Series, but esports, well, it's very much your manner. So how excited are you that W Series has taken this direction?
I think it's awesome. We're seeing this quite often now with multiple organizations coming and getting involved with the esports scene. But it's a huge opportunity, not only for W Series, but for the drivers themselves. Again, we've got some of last season's incredible drivers, plus a few new drivers as well. So it's a chance for them to get the spotlight on themselves and prove how quick they can be in the sim racing world.
Yeah, absolutely. DC, please do not take offense, but you are very much of the BS generation. And I am, of course, talking about before simulator generation. Saying that, you did win an F1 race just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here in my sim rig, so I'm coming to it a bit late, possibly. But I've been having some chats with Luke, and I think he might be able to give me some pointers as well. But I did take part in that what they call the Legends race, a Legends race against Nico Rosberg, who actually took me out of my very last Grand Prix in 2008 in Brazil. So my pure focus was to try and take him out. So it was all not as serious as what we're going to be seeing this afternoon, but it was all in fun, and I was very happy. I managed to take him out twice, actually.
That's very sporting of you. Well done. DC, you were at a lot of the W Series races with me last year. It was a hugely competitive start to this series. 4 different winners in 6 races. But as Luke mentioned, we've got a whole new crop of drivers coming in, and we could have a new star in our midst that we don't even know about.
Well, that was the thing with the format of the championship, that there was an automatic qualification for year 2 for a number of the drivers, and that allowed for fresh talent to come in, and inevitably getting a W Series established and really giving people the opportunity to understand that it's about creating opportunities, empowering women in motorsport, and it's brought on some that didn't manage to qualify in the first year, or didn't even actually try to qualify in the first year, but have managed to do so year 2. So it's a fantastic opportunity.
Luke, tell us about the setup that the drivers are using for these races.
Yeah, they're all using Logitech steering wheels. They've got themselves a nice seat to sit in as well, and they've got themselves the Logitech headsets. They are racing on iRacing as well here today. So they're all kitted up. They're all in the same level playing field, which is what we love with the W Series. So yeah, let's get on with the action. I can't wait.
DC, I mentioned we are going to some cracking racetracks. I've been to them all. I think you've driven at them all. You've certainly won at Monza, which is where we're heading tonight. It's a wonderful place, isn't it?
It is the Temple of Speed, as they call it, amongst the racers. So it will throw up its own challenges for the Esports League that we're about to have start here, and a lot of time on the straights to think about it. So I'm curious to see how the racers get on.
But look, how realistic is this? Because from the drivers who have been, is it really possible to recreate the feeling of taking on the Ascari chicane in a sim?
Oh, 100%. If you make a mistake around such corners like Parabolica, like Ascari, the first chicane, your race will be over exactly the same as in real racing as well. So yeah, it is as close as it can be. It's going to be a brilliant challenge for these drivers.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see it. And we've got such an exciting format coming up for you, not just tonight, but as I mentioned, over the next 10 weeks. We have 10 great racetracks to go to. There are 3 races every night in sort of different formats. We've got reverse grids, we've got sprint races, we've got feature races, and there are full points for every race. 63 points possibly up for grabs if someone is really on form. I think it's time for me to stop talking, and let's hand over to our first race and some qualifying with Luke and David.
So here we are then, ladies and gentlemen. It is qualifying for the first W Series Esports League here at Monza. And David, what a challenge it is to be at Monza for the first round.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track, historic venue, created back in the early 1920s. So a lot of history on this circuit, and it's a modern high-speed challenge. And well, I think this is probably a good circuit to have the very first race for this W Series Esports Championship. It would be, I think, a lot more difficult to actually, develop the skills and to see the racers if we were going around Monte Carlo, for instance. Whereas, street circuits, there just is no space for error. But this Monza track, fast, flowing, and the drivers have had ample opportunity to do some practice ahead of this qualifying session.
Ironically, in sim racing, Monza is the Monaco of sim racing. So it is wide, it is fast, it's flowing, but turn one is just a bit of a meme these days within sim racing. If you are, it's so rare to see everybody go through turn one cleanly. Hopefully we're going to get that today. They've got 3 opportunities though at it, so I'm sure it's going to happen at least once, right?
That's a great thing actually about this format, that it's not all over at the first corner in a race, which it can be. In my own career, I had a few times the lonely walk back to the pits when you've not actually completed a racing lap. But this format allows them to have these 3 races and an opportunity with the reverse grid as well to, if you did have a bit of a mishap in race 1, well, it's not all lost for the rest of the day.
Absolutely, and again, this is the difference between the real world motorsport and sim racing. We actually, if you make a big error and you lose your car, you just get a new one, a fresh one, back on the grid, ready for race number 2. But we're here, ready for race number 1. And actually, it's so close at the front here, David. 1,000th of a second between Caitlin Wood and Beitske Visser. This is going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible actually to see how close it is. And again, this is about effort, isn't it? The more effort you put in, then the better you're going to be at it. I know from my brief foray into the esports world that I went from not being able to complete a lap and feel like I'd never driven to the point where I actually felt like I was in the car. Not maybe feeling in terms of through your seat of your pants, but in terms of the visual and the inputs that you're doing. So you've got to immerse yourself in this world, and you can see those that put the effort in.
Absolutely. Well, Visser has the opportunity for redemption, second in last season's real championship. And today she starts on the front row of the grid. So I'm really excited to see how well she does indeed do. But very close times here, David. I wasn't expecting to be as close as it is, but I think we're in for a cracker of a championship.
Well, that's the thing. And again, we were talking off air before coming on show, and what the expectations were, and see how close it is. Really, this is important. This is for honor. These racers want to win, and so it's played out pretty well in qualifying so far.
Yeah, you're right. Whether it be real world racing or indeed sim racing, there is no off button for a racing driver. So we're about to kick off then. We're heading to Monza for race number 1 of 3 here today. Oh, God, am I excited about this. Looking forward to it. They're about to kick off. So here we go. They're on the grid then, ladies and gentlemen. It is Caitlin Wood on pole position, then Beitske Visser in second position, then the front row of the grid. We're about to get ready for race number 1 of 3. Remember, race 2 is a reverse grid as well, which we will indeed see come into effect here. So it's all about your finishing performance in race number 1. We're about to go green here then, and Monza, you can hear the revving of the engines. We got a false start there already. By the looks of things there, that will be a stop-go penalty there by Caitlin Wood, by the looks of things, unfortunately. But Visser is going to take full advantage down in towards turn number 1, around the outside there. They are side by side. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? It is last of the late breakers as they come through here. It looks like Wood is going to get through there nicely, and actually pretty clean start there, as we see a car in the background just going off backwards there. But as they come through turn number 1 then, it is Visser in the lead. So Visser's got the job done. Wood in second. Marty is in third. Sidorkova then, a 16-year-old Russian, up to P4. And as they come down towards the second chicane, it looks pretty clean here, David.
Yeah, it is indeed, and interesting there to see Marty and also Sidorkova getting their names into the public domain pretty much for the first time. Visser and Wood we're familiar with from last year, but that was a fairly clean run through the first chicane. I'm surprised at that. There was a little incident before running into it, but otherwise tidy stuff. And our championship winner of last year, Jamie Chadwick, not getting off to a particularly good start in this championship. She's down in 18th place.
Yeah, not the best of starts for Jamie here. But did you see that move from Sidakova? 16 years old. You think, do you know what, I'm going to chill out here, but nope, I'm going to make a name for myself straight away in towards the second chicane. Went up the inside, and there was a bit of a block move there by Isla. And actually, it looks like there may have been a bit of a mistake here as well from that driver. So not ideal at all. But as it stands, it is Caitlin Wood and Visser in P1 and P2.
Yeah, it's good stuff, isn't it? Here you see Wood getting the slipstream down towards the Parabolica. Visa defending that inside line and may well just have enough on the brakes. Yeah, Wood sensibly backing out of it, and she'll be able to get a good run out of Parabolica, pick up that slipstream again. And I think Visa will be under pressure into the chicane. And this is one of the fantastic sections of the racetrack here. Visa, I've got to say, driving very smartly in terms of making Wood go the long way round, but the long way round has taken her into the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's getting a taste of her own medicine as it stands here. But the front row of the grid are currently P1 and P2. Very clean stuff from them. And, well, there you go. Job still done there by Visser. But it's only given the opportunity here for Sidakova to close up here again. My dark horse for this championship is Sidakova. She may be 16, but in the practice lobbies we have had over the last couple of days, she has been absolutely incredible. Visser, probably the most experienced sim racer out of the whole field here, showing that class right now. But Monza's one of those circuits, David, where, yeah, of course, it's great to be quick as an all-round driver, but the slipstream is such a huge factor in winning these races.
Yeah, the slipstream, if you get it right around the racetrack, it can be worth up to 2 or 3 tenths of a second. And that may not sound a lot to those that are not familiar, but that is a huge amount of lap time. And very worth having, of course. Qualifying was done with the running alone on track, so they don't get the benefit of that. In my day, we could pick up a distant slipstream, so you were always trying to make sure you were out behind a faster car. But interesting to see the lines they're able to take in esports. A lot more offline, off the racing line, than I would be familiar with. You tend to get a lot of dust and debris there, but Visa, you can, as you mentioned, is definitely showing her experience in this virtual world, because she's placing her car perfectly.
Yeah, really clever from her. Sector 1, she's kind of just put a little bit of a gap between her and the other 2 drivers behind. But ultimately, it would be better for her if it's just one driver. Can't work with anyone when there's only one driver. Those 2 have got to be clever here. So Caitlin Wood and Ira Sidakova need to work together to try and close that gap on Visser. But that is your top 3. Then we've got Marty in P4. Tasmin Pepper is in P5. We've then got Ida Agron in P6. Gosha just made the move then for P6 here as they come down in towards turn number 1 once again. And well, Visser is absolutely dominating as it stands here. Very, very good stuff from her. But I tell you what, there's 4 drivers behind here, David. And again, they've got to be clever. I know it's only race number 1 and they're all out for themselves right now, just trying to get used to the game, trying to get used to the championship, other people's driving styles. But they need to have a little bit of nous about them and use them, use their fellow competitors to try and close up to that leader.
Clean racing here, which is actually what we saw on track last year as well. Very few incidents to really speak about so far. So I think they are being very sensible in their approach here. And also just looking further down, look, you can see Jamie Chadwick now has moved herself out to just outside the top 10. So having not started particularly well, she's showing her skills and her experience moving back up. And she's got Garcia next in her sights. But as we go through the second chicane here, we join there with Jamie, and you can see just how close she is. So I'm going to take us forward and predict that she'll get a pass done before Parabolica.
Yeah, well, she's going to try and, through the Lesmo, as you can see here, not quite close enough, and actually dropping a little bit of pace here. So Belen Garcia still holding onto the position just in front. You can see slipstream up towards Ascari. Now you're really going to see that effect take place. It is huge in these cars. I don't even go as far to say it's worth a couple more tenths, what you were saying, David, here. Maybe half a second across the whole lap, maybe over a second as well, just with the nature of Monza. They come through Ascari here, and, just a little bit of a missed apex there, ever so slightly by Garcia. Nothing to write home about as it stands, but look at this. Look at the exit from Ascari by Chadwick as we come down the back straight towards Parabolica. I think she's going to potentially get this move done, like you said, David.
Yeah, I think this is great. I love this view, actually. We don't get the benefit of this in the real world, but it's a slightly raised position. And that was a classic pass. And actually, fairness to Garcia, not weaving around, not losing time. She realizes, like you were saying, they've got to work together to try and get themselves back up onto the back of Hawkins. And and you can see they're now going to slipstream their way down towards the first chicane.
Yeah, but it just goes to show how similar esports is to real racing, because your mind was ticking there, David. You're like, oh well, she's going to set it up for Parabolica. It's going to take a few corners to get it done, and exactly what you said there. So either you're Mystic Meg right now, or you've been a race driver before.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I absolutely embrace and support with virtual worlds racing, because it gets you inside the mind of the racer, and that's so important. And this if this had been available when I was younger, it would have accelerated my development. I've got an 11-year-old son who is all over this, and of course laughs at his father's attempts to try and master the virtual world. But it's just such a great tool, and it's fantastic actually to see that they're all taking it seriously.
Well, now we're seeing the opposite here of what Jamie just did. Well, he's going to lose a lot of time there, is Era, as they come through Ascari. But it's ghosted Caitlin Wood into a little bit of a mistake here. But now there's the opportunity to slipstream again down that back straight, down towards Parabolica. But again, they would have only have lost time there, going side by side up and towards Ascari. So Visser must be looking in a rearview mirror, thinking, this is incredible. You guys crack on there behind me while I drive away and take the race victory. But down towards Parabolica then. Again, it is all about Caitlin positioning in her car so she cannot be overtaken. Superb stuff there so far, but now it's the long run down towards turn one. But there's going to be no slipstream now because they genuinely are side by side. So right now, as it stands, Caitlin Wood still holds on to P2, but Sordakova is trying her level best to get this job done again. Only 16 years old, a big opportunity to show herself on the world stage here. And while you can see there's not enough room there to go up the inside, tries to fake up the inside and now has to indeed go around the outside. And wow, can Caitlin Wood hang on? Well, late on the brakes there by Caitlin Wood, just misses the apex, but perfectly judged there. But now all of a sudden, there's 4 drivers battling out for P2, but it is still Caitlin Wood in P2.
Yeah, no, that was great stuff, wasn't it? The fairly robust movement from one side of the track to the other to try and get the pass done. But I thought there was probably they were going to have an issue on the brakes and not make that chicane. But little did I know, and that's some great racing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not all done here yet at all. Caitlin Wood has got a long 5 minutes to go here in this race. That is for certain. Visser, though, is looking so dominant right now as she leads this race here at Monza. Race number 1 of 3. We've still got the reverse grid to come as well. So these drivers are going to have to start from the back and try and make their way through the field, which is going to be even more entertaining than it is right now. But we've still got the overtakes potentially happening here. Sordakova still trying to get this job done. Caitlin Wood trying to make that car as wide as possible up towards Ascari. Just about got a nose ahead here as the young Russian. But wow, the defense by it's not going to work out, and it doesn't. Indeed, for Sordakova, I thought that she got it done there by being late on the brakes, but unfortunately, Caitlin Wood again showing her experience and holding on to that position.
This is great stuff, isn't it? We've got 15 different nationalities out on track, and I'm just loving the fact that we would love to all be together, but this remote broadcasting is a fantastic opportunity, isn't it, to bring us together all around the globe, all these different nationalities, and to show their skills. So some great racing so far.
Yeah, there's me talking about them using their experience here. Caitlin's 23 years old, and that's kind of a theme of Cross Championship. They're also young and talented drivers, but Caitlin Wood, I think this is incredible stuff here. Again, we're watching Visser right now. She's right at the front, and she's not put her foot wrong. But, being under pressure for this long in a race and still maintaining a position, that shows great awareness there. And actually, to be fair, I've made a mistake here. Sorry, it was Sordakova that holds on to P2. So actually, Caitlin Wood was the one who went off at Ascari. So I completely got that wrong there. But Sordakova then, wow, 16 years old, is showing, head on her shoulders well beyond her years.
Yeah, well, I must confess, Luke, I should have had your back on that one, but I was so lost in the moment of your commentary, I didn't pick up on it either. But we did Sordakova a disservice there. It was Wood who made that mistake at the Ascari chicane, carried too much speed on the brakes and went for a little trip through the gravel.
Yeah, that's one for Murray, I think. We'll give one to Murray there. He was prone to a mistake or two, that's for sure. One of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. Marty that moved up into that podium position here with Tasmin Pepper, now in P4. So there is a battle now forming for that podium. And as a race driver, David, if you can't win a race, it's all about getting that podium, right? Yeah,
you want consistency across any racing league championship, whether it's virtual or real world. You've got to know when it's your day and when just to bring the car home. You don't always get the car talking to you, and as I learned to my expense when I was a young driver. Sometimes you let frustration get in the way, and as you get experience, which is why it's so impressive to see Sirokova's performance here, because normally with experience you really start to learn how to bring the car home.
Like we were saying at the top of the show, this is a huge opportunity for these drivers. There are so many people watching at home, and we are going to breed some new stars here. That's a fact. This is going to happen. You've got to take this opportunity with both hands. The amount of people who are going to be watching this, and while Sirokova is doing exactly that, going to be really interesting to see how well she does battling side by side with Visser in the next race. But look at this battle for P3 is really heating up now here. Marty then is in P3 right now, and Tasmin Pepper just in behind as they come through turn number 1.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be. Sorry, look, I was going to say I don't think there'll be an opportunity down into the second chicane. Turn 1 is the real place to try and get a pass done, or down into Parabolica. But under normal conditions, it's such a tight chicane coming up here. The braking point's just beyond the bridge. You can see the 100-yard board there, nicely positioned to use as a reference. And that chicane is a lot tighter than it may look on the images, and the drivers have to do a lot of work in the braking zones on this race circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. The brakes are going to be screaming at this point in the race. I think you're right there, David. Ultimately, I think we might see a potential move there in race 3 today, when they're a little bit more comfortable with their surroundings. They've learned a little bit more about their competitors. But yeah, in race 1, just the nature of the circuit, that's not going to happen. I tell you what, though, Marty has done a hell of a job here. Was under so much pressure beforehand, but Tasmin Pepper not able to get that job done. But it is going to be Visser, I believe, who will get our first race victory here, who led the way from the start, got the job done early in this race, and does not look back since. Then we've got Sirokova in P2, Marty is in P3, Tasmin Pepper is in P4 there. Gosha Radest is in P5. I've not spoken about her today, but she's got a job done on Caitlin Wood. So Wood dropping a little bit further back here, but Visser has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, she's been fantastic, and picking up on the word there that you used, pressure. There is pressure in this virtual world. There is absolutely no doubt about it. You've got to be able to keep your head. You've got to stay calm. I managed in one of my attempts to race around the Circuit of Americas in Austin. I managed to crash on the straight when I was looking in the mirrors to see if I was about to be overtaken. So the pressure got to me. So you've got to work at it, even when you think it would be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, well, actually talking about Circuit of the Americas, that's next week. So, the most challenging circuit straight off the bat for these drivers here. It's only going to get more difficult as we do indeed go on. Looks like we're on to the final lap of today's race then as it stands. But Visser, again, has done such a superb job here as it stands. But again, Sirokova is in P2. And actually, we're coming up to some lap traffic here then for Visser. And, well, she'll be wanting to hope that indeed doesn't affect the race here as they come towards the second Lesme. You can't make really an overtake through the Lesme, especially the second part. It's only one lane through there, and it's also cambered as well, so very difficult to get the car settled if you take a different line. But you can see just going as wide as possible here to make sure that this does not affect her race as they come up towards Ascari here. And it's been pretty flawless, David, we must say.
Yeah, she's been showing her experience all the way through the practice sessions, delivered in qualifying, and this has been a flawless race. She's going to have to show in the second race, of course, her racing ability, because with the reverse grid, she can take the plaudits right now, and those. I'm not aware whether she's got fastest lap or not, but she'll certainly get 20 points for the win. But she's going to have to work pretty hard in race 2, coming from the back.
So the only slipstream she would have been able to use for a fastest lap would have been going past a back marker. So yeah, maybe she's got the fastest lap. We will find that information out a little bit later here. But then as we come across the line here, it's looking very good for Visser. And Visser slowing the car down. She crosses the line. Such confidence then from Visser. But it will be race number 1 then taken for the esports veteran, as we've been told, although still a very young lady herself. But it will be Sirokova. It's going to make the headlines, I think. First ever experience of sim racing, seeing her within the W Series as well. Take P2, Marty will take P3, and Pepper will take P4. I'll tell you what, I was really quite surprised there, considering, we've watched a few practice sessions. We can't say we haven't, and it was a little bit scrappy, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. But that was really, really good for a first race of a championship.
Absolutely nailed it. I think that there'll be a couple of people scratching their heads as to what happened off the start line. There was one car seemed to turn sharp right rather than making its way down to the first chicane. But otherwise, that was nice, clean racing. And well, that's Visa that's picking up the first 20 points of the day.
Maybe it was tactics to start pole for race number 2. Who knows? No one wants to be going backwards into turn 1 at Monza, but you never know. But again, it's a reverse grid now, David. So, from your experience, I'm not too sure whether you've done many reverse grids in your time, but what sort of mentality would you be going into something like this when it is a reverse grid?
Well, I had one race actually in Monaco where I had to start at the back. I'd qualified on pole position, but the car stalled when and I blamed the car because I know I was the driver, but I had a technical issue and I had to start at the very back of the race. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show your racing skills. It's an opportunity to make your way through and to try and get points. That is what the goal is. Of course, winning ultimately is what the drivers are aiming for. But when you start at the back, you wouldn't expect to make it all the way to first place, but you want to try and get yourself as many points as possible. And it's that consistency of results that's going to win you a championship.
Yeah, you are looking at, people making mistakes ahead of you, especially in such a short format race of 15 minutes. Of course, we don't wish anybody to make mistakes and be off circuit, but Visser will be hoping for that right now. That is for certain. But Sidorkova, 16 years old, and wow, made a bit of an impact there in race number 1. Very ruthless as well with the overtake opportunity she took on. What are you expecting to see here against Visser? Of course, second in the championship last season. What are you expecting to see from Sidorkova?
Yeah, I think that there's no question she's a very talented racer, and kept it nice and tidy there. Cam head. Really looking forward to seeing her wheel-to-wheel competition skills when it takes to coming back through the field. So yeah, let's see what the second race brings us.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier. You said, for the whole Esports League here, the W Series Esports League, it's going to be about the race 2s each week, trying to maximize your position. Of course, winning races from a qualifying standpoint is, I say, relatively easy. It's not easy, but it's going to be easier than starting from the back of the grid. It's always about maximizing your points. If you can get sort of beyond 10th position from a winning position of race 1, that's going to build a championship run, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they're learning as they go here, but it's a great opportunity now to see this reverse grid.
Absolutely. So it looks like Kymäläinen Vulvel then is on pole position here. Tomaselli then is in P2 then as we head down in towards turn number 1 again. It's almost 5 abreast here, and wow, are we going to see some carnage? We've got some of the faster drivers in behind here, but it looks like, there's another car facing off here. 2 cars there facing off. That's not ideal, and actually ends up being a little bit of carnage here at the start of the race, but Emma Kymäläinen's got through nice and cleanly. Very much reminiscent of Visser's start from race number 1. Fabienne Vulvend then is in P2 here as it stands, but there's a little bit of carnage there. We were expecting it. It was pretty clean in race 1, but with this reverse grid toss-up, David, well, yeah, not the cleanest of starts.
No, it's not, but look at that. Visa up to 12th place already, so she may have started at the back up to 11th already, so she's definitely on a charge, and she's got her arch rival from last year, Chadwick, just in front of her. Pepper there having a partial spin at the second chicane, and I didn't quite catch who it was that was in the gravel. No, was it? Oh, wow. Okay, so this has got...
as well, then.
Yeah, she's got caught up in that incident.
Yeah, which is not great at all here. But it is, by the looks of things, Kymäläinen then still leading the way. And again, a huge deficit then behind Vulven. But there's no pressure. Again, we're talking about in race number 1, 2 or 3 drivers behind you when you're in P1. You could be in trouble around a circuit like this, but it's only 1 driver. So a huge opportunity here for Emma to go ahead and potentially take a victory. Although it looks like 3rd and 4th there, Tomaselli and Schiff are going to potentially close that gap.
Yeah, look at Sidorkova in that 7th place now as well, so she is really flying. That's a great opening lap from her.
Yeah, superb opening lap here. We're on board with Sarah. We're on board with Gosha here then, who is in P3 as it stands, in the number 3 as well. Again, superb start from Kymäläinen. Kymäläinen doing all she needed to do there. And it is Sarah Moore then in P4 as well. Then we've got Marta Garcia in P5 here, and Sidorkova already up into P6. You were talking there about Visser, but wow, Sidorkova already into the top 6 here. That's huge.
And that's a big opening lap from her. and she's going to come under a little bit of pressure potentially from Jamie Chadwick. But just coming to a race leader, Kymmelainen, she competed in the W Series last year, missed a few races due to a concussion that she picked up in Hockenheim, one of the early races. But so she didn't manage to do as many of the events as the other drivers. But she's out front. She's actually, another fun fact, she's one of the only mothers in the championship. So she when she's not out on track, she's got her hands full in other ways.
Well, you know, David, how much it takes to be at the top of your game in terms of racing, but you also know what it's like to be a father. So to have a child, like, to do both, it's unbelievable. Like, that's a huge, huge challenge, both of them in itself. But to do it together, you know, fair play. I tip my hat.
Yeah, 100%. It takes a serious amount of commitment. So, lovely lady, and she certainly is a very talented and fast racer. So this is an opportunity for her to hone her skills and show them to the world that are watching.
Yeah, Kymmelainen again still leading the way here as it stands then to Vulvend. Gosha Redesten is currently P3. Looks like a mistake there by Sarah Moore. Some more there just drops off ever so slightly here. We've got Marta Garcia currently then in... Oh, hold on, has there been a mistake here? Yes, so Sarah Moore's dropped back now. So Sarah Moore down into P6 and Sidakova has moved up to P5. Next up then is Redest for Sidakova. And Sidakova is doing the last to first challenge right now. And well, very successfully as it stands.
Yeah, that's impressive stuff. And just trying Kymmelainen to try and work out exactly how much of a gap she's managed to pull away, because I think it could, even in the short format racing, I think it can, as we're seeing here by Sidakova in 5th place, it can be done to go from the back to get a race win.
Yeah, absolutely. But that says a little bit more about Sidakova than everyone else. I think she's just got some unbelievable talent here. Visser struggling here in the pack, and again, you know, obviously qualifying at the sharp end of the grid, you're going to have a lot less opportunities to be involved in any incidents. All the incidents tend to happen in the mid pack. So again, we saw that at the second chicane on lap number 1 for Visser. Unfortunately, you know, this is going to be the defining factor of the championship, isn't it? Race 2 is going to be huge. If you can get, you know, a top 5 more often than not in race 2, and you're doing really well in qualifying and obviously winning races in race 1 and race 3, you've got a huge shot of winning this W Series Esports League.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic actually how fast the format is. You know, we only had about a few minutes between race 1 and race 2. So I think for the competitors as well, to give them the opportunity to be, right, okay, that's how race 1 worked out, happy, sad, whatever their emotions are. They've got to reset. As we've got a spinner there at the Ascari chicane.
Yeah, there was a spin there. Not too sure who that was. Jamie Chadwick, by the way, has just moved up into P5. That was Sarah Moore again, I think. So Sarah Moore there, not having the best of days here in race number 2. But Jamie Chadwick then up into P6 as it stands, I believe. We've then got Garcia and Redest. Looks like they're having a nice little battle here as well. And actually, no, it looks like Garcia's dropped down ever so slightly here. But yeah, it's still the lead for Kymmelainen, but she's losing that lead. So slipstream then is taking effect here. And Vulvend is closing that gap. So we might have a little battle here for the lead of the race. With what would be 9 minutes to go here. So we're not quite halfway. I think the gap is now around about 1.5 seconds. So yeah, coming down.
Exactly, the pressure. I can feel the pressure building on Kymmelainen because you're just being hunted down. And Vulvend is just outside of what I would say would be a decent distance to pick up that slipstream and gain that extra lap time. So it's almost like you're getting sort of sucked up onto the back of the car in front. Kymmelainen is having to punch a hole in the air, and in the virtual air, of course, all in her own. So she'll be looking at that gap, and she'll need to use all that life experience to try and keep a calm head.
Yeah, Redest here, though, trying to hold up Marta Garcia. Of course, Marta Garcia, one of the race winners from last season as well. She'll be looking to add to her tally here today. But again, not quite close up to the front 2. But again, this is the battle for the podium. We know how important it is to the drivers to get those podiums. But while they're battling for position, it's going to give Sidakova the opportunity. Jamie Chadwick now just closing up to the back of this pack as well. So again, we've got some really big names now involved in this, and then a young gun. We've got that young gun of Sidakova again. Everyone's going to be looking behind them all the time now, or indeed in front of them with the way Sidakova's pace is. She's come out of absolutely nowhere and taken this opportunity with both hands.
It's fantastic to see, isn't it? And meanwhile, just seeing how fortunes can change so quickly, with Visa fairly dominant race 1 victory, and she's now 24 seconds off the lead of Kymmelainen down in 10th place. So she will not be repeating back-to-back victories, but she's definitely getting an opportunity to see what is possible from the back of the grid, with Sidikova there running in 5th place.
Yeah, but still, 10th position from a reverse grid, of course, maximising the points of 20 in the first race. You know, this is still worth 6 points to her in race 2. So, you know, just getting up above that P15 where the points start. Of course, we do reward P1 down to P15 every single race with the points. So it's just about maximising your race 2. Again, it's something to build from for Vissa. It's not the worst result in the world. And again, if you can still be P10 with a couple of spins in the race, you know, maybe not due to her own actions, you've got to still be pretty happy with a top 10.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Consistency is key, and well, it's always they're always going to be a little bit rusty in the opening races. But I think that's why it's a relatively straight circuit, Monza, straightforward circuit, Monza, to race round. No overly complicated sequence of corners. Scary possibly is one of the more tricky sections, but otherwise it's very straightforward, sort of braking points, inputs to the chicanes, the pit paths, change of direction. So those who've got good feel on the brakes are usually the ones that will be quick around a racetrack like this.
Absolutely, could not agree with you more. Very orthodox circuit, very orthodox GP circuit. Sidorkova, by the way, is up into P4 and flying, by the way. Marta Garcia, as soon as she'd been overtaken, Sidorkova has checked out. Jamie Chadwick, by the way, has also got the job done as well, I believe. So Chadwick now up into P5, but Sidorkova she's turned the boosters on. Absolute different planet here, and wow, with about 5.5 minutes to go here, a second a lap here or there, we could potentially see her challenge for that podium.
So all race setups are the same. So this is purely down to their visual skills, the inputs that they're putting to the steering and the pedals, and the amount of time. Ultimately, you know, practice makes perfect. So the youngest competitor in this race showing some of the more experienced hands how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my experience within sim racing, it's kind of similar to real world racing. Like there's a peak performance age, if you like. You get to sort of around 25 to sort of 28, and that's kind of your prime years, if you like. So to see Sidorkova at the young age of 16, you know, it's not just against any old random person online. You know, these are some of the most seasoned drivers in the world of motorsport. And it's just like nothing for Sidorkova. Absolutely incredible to see. Struggling now to catch up to Gosha. So Gosha has really, again, turned the rockets on for herself here and really wants that P3.
I think it's interesting. You know, I'm learning ultimately from your experience that you say that sort of window of mid-20s is probably the peak time where you've got the right level of experience, and I suppose you're a little bit like a normal athlete. You've got all of your reactions. You've got your visual skills. You've got your ability to react to what you're seeing on screen.
Experience levels as well. You've been in multiple situations multiple times. You've learned how to react to them, especially when you obviously learn the most when you make a mistake. So at 16 years old, you've not made too many mistakes. So you've not really learned from it, not really been able to gain anything from it. But when you're sort of in your mid-20s, you've been there, you've done that. You've learned how to win. That's the hardest thing, David. I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. To be able to cross the finish line in first position, and of course you've raced only at the top level really throughout your prime career, like that, to learn that is, or to what you gain from that is huge.
100%. I remember well, even when after many years of competition through karting and the lower formulas, when I arrived in Formula One and won my first Grand Prix, I had no idea how to win a Grand Prix until I actually won a Grand Prix, because the stakes were just so much higher. The physical forces, the speed, the amount of workload that goes in. And I think this is where this generation of young racers that are coming through with the simulation technology, with the esports championships, it's just giving them such a great grounding to enable them to come in at a much younger age and not feel like I did, which was a little bit out of my depth in the first couple of years.
That's another thing that you feel out of place. It's like, oh, should I be excited about this? Like, Yeah, this is huge. A race win, whether it be against 10 of your friends on the internet or whether you be at the top level like we're witnessing right now, it's still winning. Winning is it's infectious. When you win, you breed winning. You do it more often because you've been there, you've done it. You know how to cope while leading a race. You know how to make that last gasp overtake. You learn how to deal with the pressure. So to see 2 different winners in our first 2 races, as it looks like it's going to happen here, that's huge for this esports league moving forward.
Yeah, it is indeed. And just looking at the lap times there, and that tells us an interesting story. Sidakova and Chadwick running pretty much even Stevens in 53.2, both of them running significantly quicker than the top 3. So we're starting to see a sort of trend of performance here. Interestingly, if my memory serves, I think Visser was in 52s in the first race. So you tell me, look, is this anything to do with, has anything changed in the track or the tires for this race too that would see them be running a little bit slower?
Well, she had clear air the whole time in race number 1, so she would have been able to take let's say a hot lap line, a qualifying line. But when you're in the mid pack, you're not taking that optimum line every single lap. Exactly the same in sim racing as it would be in the real life stuff. So she's just not been able to, get that clear air. And also, we've seen that there's been contact. She will have damage to the car. They can choose to pit and fix the damage. But of course, over a 15-minute race, if you're only going to lose a couple of seconds a lap, it's not worth it coming into the pit. So, damage is going to be a huge factor here as well. But again, I don't necessarily think 9th is a bad thing, David. As we go across this championship, as people get more and more experience within the sim, within the esports league here, we're going to start to see people get better, and it's going to be even harder to get through that pack.
Yeah, I think that there'll be a lot of lessons learned in this first event, this first 3 race section of races, and well, you can expect to see people going away having rewatching it, studying it, trying to understand exactly how they can improve for the next time.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Like, I think there may be, and this is just an assumption from my side, but there might be a couple of drivers that haven't taken it quite as seriously as they may have needed to, and realised, actually, hold on, wow, everybody's so quick. I need to put a few more hours in, Ultimately, it's a horrendous situation we're in right now by being at home all the time, but there's an opportunity for these drivers to really put those hours in and showcase their skills. But as we see this, it looks like Redest is actually caught up to P2 here, so we could have a battle for P2 as they come down in towards Parabolica. And I'm pretty sure that isn't a back marker here. So gosh, Redest then trying to make a move, and yeah, it definitely is for P2, and Redest is absolutely smashing it right now. Nearly a bit of contact through Parabolica, and well, into the slipstream, and all of a sudden here, we've got a proper race on our hands as we go round the final corner. It looks like Kimmerleinen is going to take the victory here, but it was so close. Gosh, Redest then was not able to get the job done.
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity, wasn't it? That was a great run down into Parabolica, but I think she made a small mistake. Otherwise, she could have got the run across the line. But maybe thinking, okay, I'll take that 3rd place. Good points.
Yeah, absolutely. It came up to the end that the form was there. It just ran out of lap time. But to see last season's champion Chadwick indeed coming through the field like she did, or in a better position, just goes to show that she's her adaptability is spot on. And I think that's going to be a big factor as well, David, adapting to the situation. A lot of new tracks, again, a whole new arena for the drivers to perform on. So again, adaptability is going to be huge.
Emma, lovely to see you. Congratulations. A lights to flag victory.
I am surprised myself.
It was a reverse grid, so I'm not sure if it was tactical. We'll say it's tactical in race 1, but it certainly gave you the opportunity for race 2.
I was blown away that I could actually win it, because this is completely new to me. I've never ever done any kind of gaming or simulators or anything, and I just got this amazing equipment like a week ago, and I've been able to do like an hour there and an hour here in the evenings, outside the family time. And I've been asking a lot of questions from all of the girls, like, how can I improve? What am I doing wrong? How can I improve my braking and all that? And during the race, I'm asking, and everyone is telling, and I'm like, thank you so much.
I don't think they're going to tell you anymore. Not now you've won a race.
I think they are. We have such an amazing group. It's crazy how everyone is so supportive and nice, and we are telling the setups and all that, because that will be the case also in the real life racing too, that we would know all of the setups and stuff of each other. So everyone is so supportive, and I actually love this. It's so nice.
I don't know how you find the time, Emma. You're a mother. You've just finished a radio program. You have rushed back to do this. So one more race, and then you can sit back and relax. Well done in race 2. So much to enjoy in these first couple of races. We had talked about, if you've been following W Series, then you will have heard us talk an awful lot last year about Jamie Chadwick, about Bajtska Visser. These are experienced racers, one backed by Aston Martin in real racing, as it were, the other Bajtska Visser backed by BMW. We know how talented Emma Kymäläinen is. She missed three races last year, and she still managed to finish pretty high up in the championship, winning the penultimate round as well. But we talked also about the new drivers coming in, and great to see so many fighting out there, because history doesn't mean anything, especially when you're 16 years old, David. And I just think it's been such a great couple of races for a 16-year-old Russian who watched cars and decided that she wanted to be a racing driver when she was 6 years old. I mean, this story is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's great to see that, isn't it? And it's a real opportunity. And before coming on air, Luke and I were discussing just how the importance of a championship like this and an esports series like this in taking it seriously. Because if you see within Formula One, we've had a number of the competitors during lockdown actually competing in esports championships, and it's given them the opportunity to show their skills, bring their name forward. You know, Lando Norris is a young British driver that springs to mind. So this is a real opportunity for Sidakova to introduce herself to people in the world of motorsport that haven't been aware of her prior to her entering W Series.
And look, we spoke about at the beginning. Again, there will be a lot of esports fans who don't necessarily know about W Series, and vice versa. W Series fans who maybe haven't really got into esports before. And you could hear and see David's enthusiasm at the camera angles and everything that we were seeing in the overtakes, because you do need a racer's mind to be able to do well out there. And in race 1 at the beginning, the overtakes and the battles between Caitlin Wood and Bajtska Visser were fantastic.
Yeah, I may have used the term seasoned veteran for Caitlin Wood, but she's so young as well. But yeah, Sidakova is, the Visser battle as well at the front end with Caitlin Wood. But Sidakova for me has just announced herself like, I'm here. I'm not messing around. You know, I don't care who anyone else is in this championship. I'm here to get the job done. And just showed a real ruthless edge. 16 years old to show that ruthless aggression. Unbelievable.
David, I'm always interested in tactics that happen when there's about to be a reverse grid, because you do wonder sometimes if the people at the back don't mind necessarily dropping back a couple of places if it means they can start further forward, especially when there are full points on offer. Some series don't give full points to sort of try and deter people from wanting to finish 20th maybe instead of further up. But it all sort of went pretty well. Obviously, Emma Kymäläinen started from pole position and won that second race, but she's a hugely talented racer.
Yeah, I think that the actual racing's been pretty clean. I've been looking at highlights of some other esports motor racing championships, and they made quite a few mistakes, has to be said. Hat off to the competitors in the W Series Esports Championship for keeping it clean. And I think they're sort of finding their feet, aren't they? They're sizing each other up and trying to understand exactly where their strengths are and where the weaknesses are.
And it's worth pointing out that this is week 1 of 10 weeks. We're going to go to some real wonderful racetracks. But look, using your knowledge of esports, how it's easy for people to practice when they're on their own, but a race, which is also the same in real life, is a very different situation, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can do, this is the beauty of sim racing. So you can just sit there and do thousands of laps of the same circuit. Like you can just hop on, you can't, it's not in real life. You can't just go, do you know what? I'm going to take the car down to Monza today. Like you could just turn the computer on. You're at Monza. You can do 1,000 laps. You can do whatever you like. But again, when you're doing those hot laps, you're just doing one line around the circuit. When you're racing against other people, you are forced not to take that line. So hot lapping's great. Bumming in the seat time's great, but yeah, racing along people side by side is the same as real world racing. Like there's nothing like that competitive edge.
Yeah, and that's it, David. You are sort of at the mercy of those around you as well. And I think Jamie Chadwick at the start of race one got caught up at the beginning. It might have been with Naomi Schiff. I couldn't quite see at the back, but you are sort of just exactly the same as real life racing, at the mercy of what goes on around you.
Yeah, that is absolutely clear. There's damage on these cars. So if they get involved in an incident, then it affects the rest of the race as well. But that is why I think that the ability for motor racing, so actual physical car racing, to be able to use the esports championships as a tool to fine tune your skills, your spatial awareness, your racing ability, it's an advantage actually that motor racing has over other sports, because it isn't quite the same to do if it was FIFA football or tennis. You can't get yourself into that sort of mind space where I'm sitting here in my simulator. So I've sort of a couple of times wanted to reach out and grab the steering wheel when I was watching them go around the circuit.
Now, I mentioned the circuits that we'll be going to over the next 10 weeks. If we just take a look at the calendar, because it's worth just reiterating where we're going to go. We're in Europe this week for Monza, and then next week we head to the Circuit of the Americas, another wonderful racetrack. A lot of tracks there, David, that aren't on the W Series calendar that we know. This is great for the drivers to get this sort of virtual experience.
They are, and they all have their own unique challenges. And whether it's in the real world, where you can actually smell the racetrack or the nature around, or whether it's in the virtual world, you've got to have your eye on the prize. You've got to be focused, you've got to look at your lines, and you've got to put the time in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being on that journey with them.
Do you have a favourite race on that calendar, Luke?
Wow, put me on the spot there. Nordschleife is the ultimate challenge. It's a track that I have despised for years, but I did a 24-hour race 2 months ago, and I'm in love with the place. I just want to lap it all the time now. And I learned this track 10 years ago. So I didn't enjoy it. So I don't know what's changed. That must be because I'm old, that I now enjoy it.
Well, earlier on, I was talking a lot about Jamie Chadwick, and last year we spoke an awful lot about Jamie Chadwick. Let's find out a little bit more about her.
She's going to cross the line. Here she is, our W Series champion.
My parents have backgrounds working in the city. I don't think they were expecting me to go down the motorsport route at all. As 12 years old when I started karting, it was purely my older brother that sparked the interest, and then it kind of escalated very quickly. I was 14 and I won the Janetta Junior Scholarship, which gave me a fully funded season. I won the British GT Championship, Silverstone 24-hour race in 2015, British F3 race in 2018, and MRF Championship over the winter, all against men. So up until this point in my career, I think I must have raced against 2 or 3 women maximum. So today we are back in London ahead of sort of a busy few weeks. So I'm going to head over to the Veloce offices, see Rupert, catch up. Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
What's new? When I wanted to go into Formula 3, my parents said, you're going to have to find the backing yourself. I remember coming in here with nothing on the table, almost desperate in a way to try and get something together to go racing again, and fortunately they sort of bought into it and supported me thereon, and yeah, it was the start of a pretty great relationship.
When they first announced it, I was like, brilliant, sounds like a fantastic platform, but you were so anti it. You're like, oh, I'm not sure, because you've spent your whole life racing with boys, and you had a lot of people in your ear. I was like, none of those people are going to pay for your racing game. It's simple as that. And these guys are, and they're going to give you the best opportunity to show your talent.
I wasn't overwhelmed by the idea. I just didn't really see the need for it. But actually, yeah, I quite quickly had my head turned.
It's the fact that you've proven toe-to-toe with the guys that you can beat them all. And now what W Series is giving as a platform is perfect for us. It is perfect timing. Out of all the women racing drivers on the planet right now, we see Jamie as the best prospect to go to Formula 1. Simple as that.
Jamie, great to see you. What happened at the start of race one?
I fell short of technology a little bit. I had a bit of a frozen computer, and then by the time I went to go again, the grid had already gone, so I had to start in the pit lane. But I don't think it ended up being too bad. I think there's a bit of carnage down at turn 1, so I managed to stay clear of that by starting in the pit lane. So saw a silver lining there.
Yeah, we saw you cutting your way through the field. I suppose that's just what happens. This is also new to everyone. W Series wanted to create this esports league because, as we know, sadly, there's not going to be any racing on track this season. But it must be nice to be able to race against the girls that you know so well, and you can all have a chat, and it's competitive.
Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. I really wasn't too sure about getting too involved with all the esports stuff when it came about, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and the W Series stuff's been great because they've obviously supplied us with all the Logitech equipment, and that means we're all in the same boat. We've all got the same kit, and we're going through it all together. So I feel like, we've all over the past few weeks been enjoying the testing and the racing today, and looking forward to what's to come.
Let's take a look at the leaderboard because we've had 2 out of our 3 races. And again, just to reiterate the format, we're going to have 3 races every weekend over the next 9 weekends after this one, and we've been talking about her all day, and it is wonderful to see. It's a bit like Wimbledon last year when Coco Gauff arrived, although this might be through a computer screen. We've got Irina Sidorkova, the 16-year-old Russian, leading after 2 races, 30 points. Vaitska Visser, who was second in last year's championship, on 28 points. Gosha Radest, who's a wonderful character, loves her sports car racing as well, 26 points. And Emma Kymäläinen from Finland, 20 points. Jamie Chadwick and Marta Garcia on 18, along with Nerea Marti, who is another new driver for this year from Spain. Tasman Pepper, Fabian Bolven, both on 17, and Alia Agren, another new recruit for 2020. And it's great to see that blend and mix, David, because we talked at the beginning, we don't quite know who's in our midst because we haven't had a chance to spend so much time with these new drivers, and they're holding their own, albeit in the virtual world.
Yeah, I think that's where it's great to have so many of the familiar names from last year competing, because we've got them as benchmarks and we understand how good they are behind the wheel. But we didn't know anything about Sidorkova. She's announced her arrival, and it's made her competitors sit up and take notice. So that's a fairly healthy place to be after 2 races.
In terms of race 3, it's going to be quite interesting to see who is thinking, okay, I need to get my elbows out a little bit more, or maybe the ones who have been in a bit of trouble already going, let's just get to this checkered flag.
Yeah, with so many points available within a short format, you don't want to be closing down everything tonight and heading to bed with 40 points behind, 60 points behind, whatever it happens to be. You need to be building the series and building the points. So the consistency is absolutely key. So anyone who's had a couple of weak races to start with has to go all out in race 3, and vice versa. Sidorkova can afford to, okay, she's made her mark. Let's just bring it home now in a good slot. I'm sure if she keeps out of trouble, it'll be, somewhere within good points within the top 10. But she doesn't need to go crazy.
So 2 races down, 1 to go. Really looking forward to race 3. Just to remind you of the format, because for every race it does change. So we've had our 15-minute race, we've had a reverse grid, and now we're going into race 3, which is 5 minutes longer. It's a 20-minute race. They've got to qualify again, so it's almost like we're starting from scratch. And look, as you mentioned at the beginning, people will be sharpening their elbows. They will know who to watch out for because they've been used to practicing on an empty track themselves, just going through their absolute lines. And now they've got all these drivers around them, and they will know that they need to, who to look out for and to maybe go a bit harder than they have if they've been sitting back new to this.
Yeah, absolutely. But not only that, like drivers like Jamie Chadwick, who've improved over the first 2 races, opportunity for them to show, actually, I'm now a lot more comfortable in the situation. Maybe a few of these drivers had a bit of nerves to start off with as well. Maybe some of them were expecting complete carnage into turn 1 and realized, actually, no, it's not quite as bad as I thought it might have been. And now they're going to go really hard here to try and get the job done as early as possible. So I think the possibilities are endless. We also saw Radest was not able to get the job done for P2 in race number 2, but an extra 5 minutes, would she have got it done? Well, we will be able to find out these things in race number 3.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And David, if we were looking at the results from last year on track to what we've seen in this first running of the W Series Esports League, just going on that, we would not necessarily have expected Caitlin Wood to take pole position for race 1.
No, absolutely. She, had what I would consider a fairly steady season rather than exceptional in any one particular race. So, but she's another year older, another opportunity to show her skills. So she's gone away from that first series of on-track racing, and she's clearly learned.
Okay, so as I mentioned, 2 races down, 1 to go. It is the final race of the night. We're heading back to Monza, if only, but we can do it here because it is almost like real life racing. Luke and David, over to you.
Here we are again then, ladies and gentlemen. It is race number 3, the feature race here at Monza. And well, we've got Visser on pole position as it stands with 5 minutes 50 seconds left to go. But they indeed only have 3 opportunities at a lap time. So a couple of these drivers may indeed have got all of their lap times in already. But is there any surprises on there, David?
Well, Wood once again showing good pace out front in those 152s. Visser is so close to her, and it's going to be interesting to see if anyone can match those two. Sirikova again showing that, she's not been the outright quickest, has she, in any of these qualifying sessions, but she's been very, very strong in the races.
Yeah, consistency's been key for these first Sirikova, that's for sure. Again, like showing a really experienced head. At 16 years old, again, I'm so perplexed by it. It blows my mind, but it's really, really cool to see. But we saw in race number 1, it was 1,000th of a second between the front 2. This time, it's a huge margin. It's 100th of a second here between Caitlin Wood and Visser. Just nothing between these two drivers on a hot lap.
Yeah, it's I can't sort of overemphasize the skill it takes, whether it's in real world or virtual world, to be that consistent, to be able to really hone in on the lap time. You've got to drive the circuit like this with fingertips on these long straights, try not to scrub any speed off, and to make sure. And even if you've done a good lap, it can all go wrong at Parabolica. It's a short apex, high speed turn, and you certainly got to make sure that you're not overly greedy on either entry or exit to be able to get the consistency of the lap time.
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing the same names, though, at the top of the timesheets. Notably, not as quick as the previous times there. So, again, conditions of the circuit may indeed be a little bit hotter here. So the tyres are acting a bit more like bubblegum. It seems very, very hot here in Monza. But they're about 0.4 of a second off the time. But the times overall, David, are very, very close indeed. As we look here, the top 10 separated by around about 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, you've made me think of bubblegum now. I'm trying to think now which flavour I would like. So you're referencing the tyres getting all a bit gooey as the warm temperatures go up. The tyres on the race car, the only thing that touch the road, of course, whether that be in real world, virtual world, so important to be able to bring those in properly and exploit the grip that you're getting from them. And if you overheat them, then you actually end up almost like a bubblegum. It becomes, you get blistering on the tire, and it just feels like it's wallowing around.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the best, not the most ideal, that is for sure. Not long to go then in qualification right now. We're on board with Sirikova, and I believe that they are now just doing practice laps. I think they're all locked in. They've done their 3 laps here as it stands. But again, Visser, by the way, is now pole position. So Wood has dropped out here, but again, it's a huge margin. Once again, 0.02 of a second. It really couldn't be any closer here.
It is indeed very close. And as I cast my eye down the running order, I'm not seeing Jamie Chadwick in there. So not a particularly strong qualifying session for her.
No, not a strong qualification for her at all here, actually. But maybe leaving it a little bit late here to get those lap times in. In practice did a 53.0, which would put her around about Alice Powell's position here, just in behind Marta Garcia. But so again, she's out on circuit. coming up towards Ascari is Jamie Chadwick. But we're on board with Caitlin Wood then across the line. Will Caitlin Wood improve? Will she retake that pole position? And yes, she has. Wow, okay. So now it's by 1/10 of a second. Caitlin Wood has got the job done. Qualifying. Who thought this would not be exciting? This is crazy.
That is great, isn't it? The consistency of performance between Wood and Visser has been really, really strong in delivering those fast laps. So the running grid there, giving her a great opportunity to see if she can come away with a victory this afternoon.
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier a little bit about some surprises. You know, drivers that may have had a bit of nerves, you know, may not have had the best first two races. Well, Agron, currently in P3, been nowhere all day. All of a sudden, right at the top of the timesheets there. Again, only just over 1/10 of a second off the pace behind everybody here. We're on board with Tasmin Pepper, who's currently in P6 as it stands here. And again, Pepper in race number 1 was there or thereabouts, but in the race didn't really hit the heights. This is another opportunity to indeed change that. But again, every single week, David, they've got 3 opportunities to change their fortune.
Yeah, that's a good thing about this format. And when you highlight there Agron's performance, then that is very impressive. She's new to W Series for this year. She's a full-time student as well as being a racing driver. I noticed in her bio. So she's certainly studied this racetrack well to get a performance like that in.
Yeah, is that the most interesting thing outside of their racing lives? Well, I'm going to go as far as to say that Belen Garcia, being a pole vaulter, is right up there for sure.
Good point.
What a stat that is. Imagine that being unbelievable at pole vaulting and racing. Like, yeah, that is the dream for me for sure. But then again, I'm not really good at heights. I'm too big to be on a pole as well.
Yeah, well, one of my neighbours down here is a former pole vaulter, Sergei Butka, I think is how you pronounce his name. Certainly, he's around. He's a bit older than me actually, so I guess a lot of the people watching this might pass them by that name.
Well, you've got some very, very, very great stories about your neighbours there in Monaco, David. Probably more exciting than my neighbours. I got a police station next door to me. So saying that, there's probably some interesting stories from there as well. But yeah, on to race number 3. It is Caitlin Wood who takes pole. What a performance that was. We saw a mistake in race number 1 through Ascari. Obviously, she's going to have to learn from that. It gave Sidorkova the opportunity to indeed show her pace because Wood was keeping Sidorkova behind for so long and really, really good defensively. Again, won that pace, incredible, but it's all about race time here. So, you know, what will she have to have taken from race number 1?
Well, I think what's really impressive is to see the speed that she clearly is able to find within this Monza racetrack. And it actually was an uncharacteristic mistake. To have that level of speed and that consistency of speed, you would then not expect to see such an error. So whether that was the fact that her mirrors were full of another competitor and she just simply missed her braking or not, well, now's the chance for her to right those wrongs and try and finish up race 3 with the victory.
Mental strength, we haven't touched on this. You know, within motorsport series such as the W Series, you've got a few weeks in between races most times to get the head sorted if you had a bad week. You've got minutes here to get your head sorted for another race. And Caitlin Wood, she's got rid of that memory. Don't care about it. I'm taking pole. I'm all good for this race.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. It gives them that opportunity. So, race 3, all to play for.
Well, here we go. We are indeed off here. And, well, Caitlin Wood momentarily got a pretty damn good start here. But it's Agron from P3 up into P1. Marty, by the way, up to P2 as we come down in towards turn number 1. And it's 3 wide. It's 3 wide for the front for P1. And it's 3 wide for P4 as well. But it's Marty that takes the lead. What a start there by Marty. Agron is second. And Visser has moved all the way down into third. Wood, we were talking about the positives from the, having that mistake from race 1 into qualifying for race 3. But already down into P5. And, well, Sidorkova, it's been all about her today, already into P4. What a start.
Yeah, it was good. There was one little spinner I saw at back of screen through the middle of the first chicane, but a much cleaner start all round as we have got a spinner at the second chicane and another one going into the gravel actually. Who was that there? That was Agron who got involved.
Agrin's got herself up into P1 and then down to P11 in a couple of breaths there. And well, she found the gap, by the way. Didn't clean anyone out there. So it was like Skittles, where you've got, well, not Skittles, 10-pin bowling, where you've got the pins left, number 7 and number 10. And she's just gone straight through the middle of everybody there. Luckily, not collected anybody and got going, like no problem. So all good here again. P11 as it stands. But it's Marty. Marty taking full advantage, and well, for the third race in a row, a different leader on lap number 1.
Visa, though, will be quite happy with that. There's, as we've spoken about earlier, there's always the real risk of getting involved in an incident in the first lap around Monza, but this gives Visa an opportunity to try and build on her very positive start to the first 2 races, and her championship leader, Sidakova, running just behind her. So it does seem that we're sort of starting to build up a form, aren't we? A sort of an opportunity to see who's got the consistency across these 3 events.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marty, over the 3 sessions here, practice, she did a 52.7, and in qualifying, got faster. More pressure, got faster. So maybe we might be able to see something similar in this race here. We were on board then with Jamie Chadwick. So Chadwick there is in P9 by the looks of things. And actually, no, it's P9. So P9 then for Chadwick. But it is, again, Marty versus, well, not again, but Vissa at the front end, the sharp end of the grid. But then in behind them is Sidakova. Sidakova already up into P3 here. And, well, she's not going to be too worried here. But look at this. So Jamie Chadwick trying to make a potential move here on more. But as we do indeed head up the order. So Sidakova has got a bit of clear air here. Again, you said earlier, maybe not the quickest over 1 lap. But the consistency has been absolutely key here. And she'll be looking ahead thinking, God, I hope those 2 front drivers can indeed start battling, lose time. They can hemorrhage time by going side by side around a circuit such as Monza and then really close that gap. And, well, for us, sat here, all excited, a 3-way battle for the lead? Yes, please.
That is, it's definitely on the cards, isn't it? And when we were on board there earlier with Chadwick, she just actually lost her position to Moore down into the first chicane. Looked like she was trying to come back. But didn't manage. So on board with Bikesky Visa, and I love this angle here that we're able to see exactly what she'll be seeing on her screen right now. And she's got to be sort of sensing that she's picking up a slipstream, trying to work her way towards Marty.
Yeah, she definitely is picking up some sort of slipstream. It's not having a huge effect, but it's having an effect. But again, I tell you what, the pressure is really told here because Marty takes a very deep line there through Parabolica. We'll be able to get the power just a little bit earlier, so not all is lost there. Again, it's a cambered corner, so there are multiple different lines through there. David, you'll have to talk about that because you're the expert.
Well, this was interesting actually is to see, because in the esports world you can play around with the lines a lot more than would be the case in the real world. That's the only thing that I would say is a sort of difference in terms of the experience when you're driving. You've got to be a lot more disciplined on keeping on the clean bit of tarmac, and also in real world racing, the rubber's going down as that's a slow moving car. Who was that? Has that got some damage on the car that they've just been passed by the race leaders? So being lapped already.
Yeah, it looks like that might be Belen Garcia, unfortunately. That's not the greatest of starts here. But again, these drivers aren't going to be too worried about that. Visser closing the door here. Neria has never had any sim racing experience before today, or this week. So it's the first time she's ever jumped on the sim. And, well, you know, natural talent speaks volumes here, leading the race. And, well, with someone like Visser behind her, who's got so much experience in sim racing, so much experience in the real world, of course, comes second in last year's W Series Championship. Like, can the name be any bigger than that? Is holding up nicely here. So Marty still leads this race. But like we were talking about, Sidakova is going to be hoping they're going to go side by side. You can see them just up ahead there, up towards the Ascari, and they are very close indeed. So Sidakova is going to try and potentially close that gap by them two making mistakes with each other. In behind them, though, Pepper and Radest are pretty damn close as well. Radest then in behind Pepper. So there's a freeway battle, actually, by the looks of things as well. Is that a back marker in between them? It looks like it might be a back marker. Is it Belen Garcia? So, yes, it was Belen Garcia there, David. Good spot, by the way, of the back marker there so early in the race. Looks like she's taking the option to do the fast repair. And I tell you what, you know, it's great to see drivers at the front end of the grid, but to see a back marker indeed adhering to the rules like that, not, I don't know, being aggressive and holding up people's positions. It's really good to see the nature of a championship such as this. But back up to the leaders. Again, It is Marty leading out, Visser in second, Sidorkova is in third, Pepper in fourth, and then we're on board then with Redest, who's currently in P5. And again, I wasn't expecting it to be as clean and as close as this in the first weeks of racing, but especially with the front two leaders as it is now, Visser and Marty, it could not be any closer. Qualifying's been incredible, David, but the racing's been pretty sensational as well.
And just to pick up on something you mentioned there about there have been other esports championships and series in operation during this lockdown, and it's been disappointing to see sometimes the sporting or the sportsmanship has not quite been there. But I think that we've got to give all credit to the competitors here from W Series, everyone taking part, of course, and everyone realizing the importance of this. So fair play, sportsmanship is important in the virtual world.
We've had a change of the lead, by the way. Visser now leads Marty. Got it done to the second chicane. It was a really good move. The door was left wide open by Marty, but Marty, not able to take full advantage on the exit here. And actually, Visser already driving away. But where does this leave Sidorkova? Well, actually, Sidorkova hasn't really closed that gap then in P3. So again, it was Marty kind of let it happen more than anything. Are we seeing mind games being played here already at Monza? Because sometimes it's better to be in P2 than P1. Of course, everyone loves to be in P1, but it's one of those circuits where if you're in the slipstream, we saw that Redest nearly got a podium or second position in race number 2. It's almost better to be in second than in first.
Yeah, it's going to be very telling, isn't it, these next couple of laps to see whether Visser can break away. Marty doing a good job right now of staying within slipstream distance.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Again, it's a gamble. It's certainly a gamble if you're going to give up a position, especially a lead. But Visser is going to be loving life, and actually, Visser has driven away, by the way.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't do it. I would take track position over anything else, and then just make sure I made my car as wide as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been commentating on the official DTM Championship recently as well, and we've seen Robin Frines was a driver that gave up the lead intentionally on the final lap. To another driver, so he had DRS on the next lap. So we've seen it happen in multiple series actually. So it is.
Did that work for him?
No, it didn't. It really didn't. So and actually he finished in 5th in the end, and that was Kelvin van der Linde took his first victory. So yeah, it's a risky strap, but drivers are going to be thinking outside the box here as well. You know, it's not always going to be about your ability, your talent. It's sometimes about thinking of strategy. Of course, there's no pit stops. Forced and mandatory pit stops. If you do a pit stop here, you've done something wrong, basically, in this series here. So it's about trying to think outside the box. What can you use to your advantage outside the natural racing with these drivers?
Yeah, down with Chadwick there, fairly lonely run that she's having right now. So I'd say she's been steady in these opening races, but certainly not showing the sort of attack in the hunger and the finesse for the sim world that Visser, her big rival on track last year, is showing.
Oh, absolutely. You're right there. And I think, again, it's good. There's going to be a few shocks drivers in this championship who are going to go, do you know what? I need to put a few more hours into this. It's good to see that everyone is taking it seriously. The respect levels have been incredible. Again, this is a little bit longer format final race here. This is a nice little battle for what would be P4 between Alice Powell, Gosha, Redest and Tasmin Pepper, and again slipstream being so huge, and I'm really surprised that Alice has not got to further left sooner. Again, wasting opportunities at slipstream here, and does that show lack of experience? Maybe thinking that slipstream isn't a thing within sim racing, not got the the hours upon hours, the weeks, the months, the years of practicing sim racing to not know that it is quite realistic in that respect.
Yeah, I think that clearly is just a bit of a lack of experience in understanding that you may well be not actually moving when you're on the simulator, but the actual programming nowadays, you can just see from the visuals, is so good that everything that can be replicated in the virtual world is, including slipstreams.
Absolutely. Again, we're on board with Tasmin Pepper, who's all on her own there. But looking behind them then, side-by-side action between Alice Powell and Gosha Redest. And Alice is trying to find this move. It all stemmed from the first chicane there, where indeed Gosha just missed the apex of the entrance through the first chicane and then was under pressure all the way down through Curve Grande. Through the Lesmos here, though, as we come up towards Ascari then. And well, Gosha's actually sorted herself out here, to be completely honest there. Got herself out of trouble. after the initial mistake. But that slipstream is going to be a telling factor here. And, well, we're on board again with Alice Powell, and seems to realise now that slipstream is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
She's
going to see that, isn't she? Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking over you, but she's definitely going to use that, I think, in good effect down towards Parabolica. Slight mistake from Modeste coming out of the Ascari chicane. So Powell now getting out onto the racing line. This now becomes a battle of the brakes. Well, in actual fact, she's been able to use that momentum. Well, I correct myself again. Modeste there using the inside line on the brakes, and now I'm surprised Powell allowed her to slip it back down the inside, but she'll come back at her as we go across the start-finish line.
Yeah, it looks like Gosha's got the brakes nailed here, and Alice is got to really put the move's got to be pretty much done before they get into the braking zone. And again, we're seeing very similar here. As soon as they pull out of the slipstream, the cars go to very even pace once again. And again, Gosha on the brakes late here. She hit the apex this time. Yes, actually, beautiful bit of work there by Modeste, and keeps that position. So Alice keeps getting the opportunity, the snifters of opportunities, and Gosha's like, not today. And we saw in race 2 that she was exceptionally good at closing in on the brakes on the final lap. Again, wasn't able to get P2, but in this final race of today, again, showing how good she is on the brakes. I was speaking to Jamie yesterday, and she mentioned that Modeste and Marta Garcia, the two to watch out for in terms of braking. Their braking ability, in her words, were scary, very, very good indeed. But we come up towards the Lesmos here, and it is again side by side. And again, the brakes aren't going to be able to help Gosha out here, as Alice Powell does indeed take 5th position. And it's only a single file through this next Lesmo. But indeed, we've got now 3 very straight parts of the circuit. Split between them is Ascari and Parabolica. So I'm excited to see that it's happening here. Gosha trying to retake that P5. And, well, this is a battle for the ages right now.
Yeah, this is great. This is absolutely fantastic racing and wheel-to-wheel stuff, and the sorts that you can get in Monza. There's those long straights where momentum carries. So let's see if Powell can come back again on the run down to Parabolica or down into the first chicane. So Modeste will be checking her virtual mirrors as she goes along. You can see Powell now again on the outside. We know the lap before she didn't manage to get it done on the brakes, and everything we've seen from Modeste and her braking ability. I'm amazed that she's able to get the car stopped and pick up those apexes whilst exploiting the braking in the way she is.
Yeah, listening to Alice Powell here, though, she was getting off the gas like 3 times into the braking zone there. So I still think she's learning the car, still learning the track here at Monza. So for me, Alice Powell's learning so much about her own ability within this sim moving forward. She's going to be a huge danger later in this championship, because I'm just seeing so many rookie things here. But I tell you what, there we go. There's a mistake from Gosha, and again, the room left on the outside. But the one thing to take from this battle is the respect levels between both drivers.
Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. We saw it on track last year, and we're seeing it play out in the sim and races as well. But that was just one braking point too far for Modeste, and that's given Alice now the opportunity to set about trying to catch Pepper.
Yeah, 5 minutes, 50 seconds left to go on the clock then, ladies and gentlemen. So we're heading towards the sort of end of what the first 2 races would have been, but now we've got the extended 5 minutes for our feature race. And I'm on board with the front 3 as it stands. So Visser had that almighty battle with Marty, and as soon as Visser's got some clear air, she is off. She is checked out for the rest of this race. And now Marty under a little bit of pressure here from Sidorkova. But again, we're seeing Sidorkova, it's, again, not the ultimate 1-lap pace, but the consistency is huge from this driver, and everybody is going to be on watch, because Sidorkova has announced herself as a genuine W Series Esports League contender.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's really good to see who's got a very clear mark in the sand as to their performance levels. And well, in terms of when you're actually out on track, it's much easier to control the amount of time that people get to hone their skills. But of course, in the virtual world, this is just more effort you put in, the more time you spend discovering the limitations and the strengths and what have you of the performance of these cars, is the results are going to be there. There's definitely quite a few down towards the back end of this race that we'll need to put in a few more hours before round 2.
Yeah, like we were speaking before the broadcast about when you started, when you turn out to a track for the first time, that's the first time you've ever been around that track, you know? Like, it wasn't a case you could have hopped on the PlayStation, the PC, the whatever, and done 1,000 laps. Whereas these drivers, not only do they get that opportunity, but it's actually the same as the race because the race is virtual this time. So, yeah, hours, there's no substitute for putting the hours in. Of course, talent is huge with these drivers, but yeah, putting in the hours is absolutely vital. And again, you know, from my notes, Visser was put down as the most experienced sim racer. Well, she's proving that that's pretty much nailed on.
Yeah, she's a very focused individual, and it doesn't surprise me that she uses everything at her disposal to try and hone her skills. As we saw ahead of Jamie Chadwick there, that was Wood going across the rumble strips at the second chicane. She's come back on track, but she's lost some time. So Wood has shown good speed in qualifying, but a lack of consistency in race sim. Oh, it's Cook actually. Was that Cook? Yeah, so maybe that was Cook being lapped actually. So excuse me, unfairly pegging that as Wood having made another mistake.
I still think you're right though. I think there's legs in what you've just said there. I think Wood's probably the quickest one lap pace out of all of these drivers. You know, 2 pole positions. That says it all really. But again, consistency isn't quite there. So that is, you know, that's where you get the talent, the ability, but then plus how much time have you put into the rig or the sim to be consistent. So I think, again, there's so many stories here. There's so many drivers that we are going to see improve over this championship. So what we've seen today is Visser and Silikova have been the standout 2 drivers. We've got Marty, of course, huge performance here. Wood over 1 lap has been absolutely exceptional. But there are so many different drivers that have done well at different times. So when they all hook it together, we're going to see some incredible battles moving forward.
It's interesting just looking at the lap times there. Visser and Marty sort of pulling each other along, both running solidly in the 52s. And then there's quite a step back, isn't there? You've got Peppers just snuck into the 52s, but the rest pretty much in the mid 53s. So not having actually driven the W Series Esports car as yet, which I certainly I'm planning to get an opportunity to do so ahead of some of the other events. Then I can't speak from an experienced point of view of how they would find that gap. But look, you've been doing this for a long time. Where, if I was a second off the pace, where would you expect me to have to work? Is that all about braking? Is it about throttle application? Where is the easiest chunks of time to be found in the virtual world?
Yeah, braking, carrying speed through corners, maximizing exits. It's the same.
It's everywhere, basically.
Yeah, it's the same as real world racing stuff. But the beauty of sim racing is, like, these drivers can save this replay. You know, there's no team constraints. There's no teams hiding pace. There's no teams that are going to be, oh, we're not going to give you our footage, or because on television, when you watch these championships, you don't see consistently 10 laps of the same driver. You'll see snippets, or in qualifying, you'll see a full lap, for instance. But with this, you can just save the replay and watch the fastest driver for the whole race. So you can learn from them. So, the narrative of this championship is going to change so often. This Esports League is going to be, incredible. I'm genuinely excited to see. We haven't just had one driver smash it from start to finish. We've seen multiple drivers really show how quick they can be.
Yeah, it's been impressive, isn't it? And she's sort of slowly worked her name towards the top of these timing sheets, Marty, over the course of the 3 races. So no big surprise to see Visser and Silikova running there, but Marty's definitely put a mark in the sand to show us what her potential is for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the 2 standouts for me, Visser and indeed Silikova. But yeah, Visser's just dominated this race. Again, it's not the same as race number 1, where kind of didn't really have much to do to get that overtake done earlier. Marty looking very, very strong in this race. Has been a defining factor, that is for sure. But Visser is just looking on a different planet right about now. And again, the beauty of next week is it's a completely different kind of circuit as well. So we may see different drivers. Monza's a very easy circuit to learn. I use the term, it's easy to lap around Monza, but it's very difficult to be fast around Monza, or ultra fast. But it's a lot easier than Kota, for instance. Kota is just got so many different nuances to learn.
Yeah, I can definitely concur. I actually drove the Kota racetrack. I was the first person to do so, even before they'd laid tarmac. I drove it when it was just dirt. in a demonstration with a Formula One car. So I thought I kind of knew my way around, but when I tried it in the F1 esports event that I did a couple of weeks ago, I thought, where did that corner just come from? It's just corner, corner, corner. But one person has had no such difficulty with that today. Visa, another fantastic victory.
Well, what a great way to round off what's been a great night of racing. DC, I think what pleased me about race 3 so much is that we've spoken about Beitske Visser. We know her. She's a cool character. She's a tough racer, and she is the most experienced when it comes to racing on sims. But to have Nerea Marti finishing second, Ira Surakova in third, it's really what last year was set up to create for this year, in that the experienced racers stay, the ones who were at the top of the championship stay, but then there's some new blood coming in.
Absolutely. It creates that name recognition as well. I'm discovering some of the new names to the championship, and I'm involved in the actual on track racing, not only in broadcast with yourself, but also with the investment team behind it. And you just don't know until you go racing. People can show they've got skills, they can show they've got, the basic talent, but you need to see how they perform under pressure. And it was one of the things that Luke and I were talking about during the commentaries, who's got the calm head. It's, we could see Caitlin Wood was able to deliver single lap pace in qualifying, but wasn't quite able to keep it together throughout the entire race distance. Visser clearly has got the speed and the consistency, and clearly set herself out as a benchmark.
Look, I was going to ask you for a driver of the day, but I think at one point you sounded so excited you were announcing yourself as the president of the Sidorkova fan club.
Yes, that's all patented now. It's mine. Yeah, Sidorkova for me. A huge announcement today within the W Series Esports League. Visser probably would have started the day thinking Chadwick is my nearest rival here. I want to have a bit of redemption for last season. But all of a sudden, Sidorkova's come in out of nowhere, but Visser still managed to, take a 3-point lead moving forward. But yeah, Sidorkova was incredible.
Yeah, well, let's take a look and see what that means for the W Series Esports League, which is a tongue twister in itself. And there we can see, after the 2 victories and the 2 fastest laps, Beitske Visser has 49 points, Irina Sidorkova on 46. She also had a fastest lap. Gosha Radest, 36. Marti, a great night for her, announcing herself as well, 35 points. Tasman Pepper with 30, Kimalainen and Marta Garcia on 23. Argan, again, a great new arrival, in 20 points. Caitlin Wood, that pole position, 2 pole positions in fact, for Caitlin, and 20 points also. And Sarah Moore, Britain's Sarah Moore, 19 points, rounding out the top 10. So that is Monza ticked off, but my goodness, we have got some cracking racetracks to go to. Starting next weekend, we're heading to the Circuit of Americas, DC, from Monza to Austin. It's not bad, is it, travelling from your own home?
Yeah, no, it's great. And 2 contrasting racetracks. Circuit of Americas will definitely challenge these drivers. Some of them may have actually raced in Monza in the real world rather than the virtual world in the past, but I doubt any of them have been to the Circuit of America. So again, another blank piece of paper for them, and they've got to get in the sim and start doing some practice ahead of that event.
Absolutely, from the Cathedral of Speed to the roller coaster of Kota. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you very much, David, for your company this evening. Thank you very much to you at home as well. It's been great to have you along for what has been the first night of the W Series Esports League. We hope to see you again. In the meantime, stay safe and well. Bye-bye.